Solid principles in C# are 5 design principles for writing maintainable and flexible code. Each letter stands for a principle, as follows. S. Single Responsibility Principle. SRP. One class, one responsibility. Here is an example of C# code that demonstrates the SRP. In this example, the employee class has multiple responsibilities: managing employee data and sending welcome emails. In this refactored example, we've separated the responsibilities into 2 classes. Employee, responsible for managing employee data, and employee, welcome email sender, responsible for sending welcome emails. Each class has a single reason to change, making the code more maintainable and flexible. O. Open, closed. Principle. OCP. Extend functionality without modifying existing code. Here is an example of C# code that demonstrates the OCP. In this example, the calculator class is closed for extension, but open for modification. If you want to add a new operation, you have to modify the existing code. In this refactored example, we've applied the OCP by 1. Introducing an abstract operation class. 2. Creating concrete operation classes, e.g., add operation, subtract operation, that inherit from operation 3. Modifying the calculator class to accept an operation object as a parameter. Now, you can add new operations without modifying the existing code by simply creating new classes that inherit from operation. This makes the code more extensible and maintainable. L. Liskov Substitution Principle. LSP. Derived classes should be substitutable for base classes. Here is an example of C# code that demonstrates the LSP. In this example, the square class inherits from rectangle, but violates LSP because it doesn't preserve the behavior of the base class. Setting the width or height property of a square object will change both dimensions, which is not the case for a rectangle. In this refactored example, we've applied LSP by 1. Introducing an abstract shape class with an area method. Creating concrete shape classes, rectangle and square, that inherit from shape 3. Ensuring that each subclass preserves the behavior of the base class. Now, you can use a rectangle or square object wherever a shape object is expected without violating LSP. This makes the code more flexible and maintainable. I. Interface Segregation Principle. ISP. Clients shouldn't be forced to depend on interfaces they don't use. Here is an example of C# code that demonstrates the ISP. In this example, the iPrinter interface is too broad and forces classes that implement it to provide implementations for all methods, even if they don't make sense for that particular class, e.g., photoprinter can't scan or fax. In this refactored example, we've applied ISP by 1. Splitting the broad iPrinter interface into smaller, more focused interfaces. iPrinter, iScanner, iFax machine. 2. Having classes implement only the interfaces that make sense for their functionality. Now, classes that implement these interfaces are only required to provide implementations for the methods that are relevant to their purpose, making the code more flexible and maintainable. D. Dependency Inversion Principle. DIP. High-level modules shouldn't depend on low-level modules, but both should depend on abstractions. Here is an example of C# code that demonstrates the DIP. In this example, the employee repository class is tightly coupled to a specific database connection, SQLK connection, and the employee service class is tightly coupled to the employee repository class. This makes the code inflexible and hard to maintain. In this refactored example, we've applied DIP by 1. Introducing an abstraction interface for the database connection, iDatabase connection. 2. Decoupling the employee repository class from a specific database connection by injecting an iDatabase connection instance through its constructor. 3. Decoupling the employee service class from the employee repository class by injecting an employee repository instance through its constructor. Now, the code is more flexible and maintainable, as we can easily swap out different database, connections, or repositories without affecting the rest of the code.